Hello everyone, Thrinks is here, and today we're going to be explaining where to find the lore hidden throughout No Man's Sky. First, we talked about finding a path. Second, we talked about earning money and nanites from the early to the mid game. Now, in this third installment of our beginner's guide, we're going to assume you're somewhere near the mid game and talk about where you can find the lore of No Man's Sky. The first thing you might be asking is, will this guide include spoilers? The answer, no. We'll not be giving any spoilers as to what the lore is, only where to find it. Secondly, you may ask why there needs to be a guide for the lore. Generally in games, lore is pretty straightforward, and it's just there for you to absorb. In No Man's Sky, however, the lore is a little bit hidden and cryptic. It's pieced together slowly over time. The obvious items to mention first are the Artemis Path and the Atlas Path. Seeing as how we've already touched on these two items in the first beginner's guide of this series, we'll reiterate that these two mission chains are great sources of lore, both of which will teach you about the universe of No Man's Sky and explain two very important halves of the same encompassing story. Also, following the quest lines that deal with the various base upgrades and workers for your base, like the Overseer and the Farmer, the Scientist, etc., will also give you bits of lore about each of the main three species of dominant life in the universe through unique experiences that each one has had. These methods of obtaining lore really aren't hidden, though, as the game tries to push these paths onto you in typical storytelling fashion. So that begs the question, what about this hidden lore? Well, if you want to dive deeper into the lore about the species of sentient life in the universe of No Man's Sky, you can learn the entire history of lore about the Gek, Vy'keen, and Korvax in a few different ways. If you can locate an alien plaque, which looks like a miniature monolith, or ruins that contain an alien plaque, these are the ones without an artifact treasure in the center, you'll be able to learn one at a time chronological events that were important to the species that is most dominant in that system. You can also look for colossal archives on planets by scanning secure sites with cartographic data. These will teach you a lot about the species that is dominant in that system. However, you'll need to have some of the language of that species already learned to properly query the archive for the type of lore that you're interested in. If you're looking to learn more about the Atlas, beyond what the Atlas Path has taught you, you'll need an Atlas Pass version 3, and you'll have to have completed the Artemis storyline. Then, checking in the back of space stations in your travels, or other planet-side structures with Atlas Pass version 3 doors, you have a chance to find rogue data that will teach you a lot more about the Atlas in greater detail. Another way to learn about the Atlas from a completely different perspective is to search for boundary failures on anomalous planets. These terminals will give you a small piece of a unique story every time you visit a new one. Abandoned buildings are another great source of lore, as they help you understand some of what's going wrong with the universe. Abandoned buildings will usually provide you snippets from 4 different storylines every time you visit one. Which storyline you get a piece from is random, though, so these can be slightly tricky to put together, but the lore you get is well worth it. In the same venue of abandoned buildings, you can search crashed freighters to learn bits and pieces of what's going on in the world through various singular experiences recounted in the wreckage. This is different, but similar to derelict freighters, where you receive a story arc that does tell some of what's going on in the universe, only these stories are procedurally generated, and so they can be entertaining mysteries to piece together, but ultimately don't weave a plot into other stories directly. There are subtle clues and mysterious connections revealed about the Sentinels in multiple locations, including the plaques and ruins we spoke of earlier, but also unknown graves of travelers can provide interesting stories alongside earning your glyphs. Be sure to always give 100 nanites to travelers at space stations if you want to hunt down these elusive sites. There you have it. These are the locations of lore most prevalent in No Man's Sky. I recommend you come up with a system that chases down the leads you're most interested in. Maybe stopping to find a plaque or set of ruins on every planet you visit, and favoring Gek systems for a while will help you discover all the mysteries of the Gek. Or maybe you favor anomaly planets to find boundary separation failures for a time. Just know that whatever you choose, There is a lot of lore out there. In the next and last installment of this Beginner's Guide series, we'll talk more about the endgame and provide some tips and guidance on the far-off goals to aim for. That being said, I do hope you've had a good time watching, because as always, I've had a good time playing. Until next time, take care.